Lebens around with my gestures. So. Does this thing work? Can you hear me? Ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege to be the moderator of the single specifically dedicated panel to the Western Balkans in this seminar dedicated to the security in the Black Sea and Balkan region. It is an indispensable topic to complete the very broad and complicated picture of the security threats we are facing today. And at the same time, being a Romanian, it is reflecting our position between two areas of enlargement, and therefore our, I would say, strategic sensitivity to the role of these two areas in the security of the European continent. I have here old friends and newer friends, three of us from, four with me, from Sarajevo, our partner from, for this panel, from Bosnia and Herzegovina, VUKSANOVIC from Belgrade, and Nevenka VUKSANOVIC from Podgorica, have been our hosts in Timișoara last year, where we have our annual flagship event dedicated specifically to the Balkans. That lasts 2 days. So we have to compensate the panel of today with the annual event in Timișoara dedicated specifically to the Balkans. The partner of the New Strategy Center for this whole event has been France, and we have Monsieur LAFOND from the European Council for Relations in France. And last but not least, a very good old colleague of mine, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, ambassador to Brussels, the European Union, and currently presidential advisor for European Affairs, Madame Ambassador Lumini, which will be the first to take the floor. Allow me, however, to have one word on my own. A Romanian academic, in one of his last books, dealt with a topic of 2 Europes to 1. His idea was to point out the fact that this part of Europe, which some called New Europe, which is in fact very old Europe, is what is necessary to complete the European project. And I called it, in one of my own papers, the unfinished business. The Balkans, the unfinished business. We are speaking of the Western Balkans, but think of the fact that a country like Romania, bordering Serbia, Republic of Moldova and Ukraine, or Bulgaria with its neighbors, or Turkey, which has one foot in the continent, in Europe, and Greece, are also part of what was historically called the Balkans, and we have to recall that we have a common history. On the other side, we have the Caucasus, and this is a wider European family. But now I want to turn to the Western Balkans and what they mean for Europe, completed Europe, and what is your perception on the challenges addressing this region, both from within and from without, because we have to think in the double terms. First, Madame ODOBESCU, I would like to invite you to share with your own diplomatic experience, vision on the Balkans, which you know firsthand. You have been an active driver for our relations with the Balkans. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation. And I just want to congratulate the organizers, because really Western Balkans is a top priority for my country. Why is a top priority? Because, of course, we support the enlargement process, but I think we have done and we have to do more than just supporting in Brussels the enlargement process. Western Balkans is an important region, and we are part, in a way, of this region as well, so for Romania. And I think Romania is a good example if you look at the results in terms of economic development, of security, of prosperity, what EU can bring for the citizens. And I think we can share not only from our experience in joining the EU, which we are doing now, but more, including in terms of democratic resilience. It is lessons for our partners in the regions, because we all know, and we have to be honest when we are discussing about Western Balkans. We are also discussing about different levels of fragility, of political, let's put it like this, fragility. I mean, just looking at political instability, interferences, yeah, different actors playing in the Western Balkans with different attitude, trying to move and to influence the directions or the European directions of different countries. We are speaking about security risks as well. So I think if you just look at the image and of course taking one country by one country, we realize that in fact we have to stay together and to try to work not only in Brussels, but also at the bilateral level. This is what we have done. I mean, I visited all the countries in the Western Balkans, and also in 6 months, all the foreign ministers came back to Bucharest, and we discussed our relations in a different way, because I mean, of course, we are big supporter in Brussels of the enlargement process, but as I said, it's not enough. We have to discuss with our partners, to share from our experience, to support them in a very concrete way. And I just want to praise the work of some ambassadors, for instance, in our ambassadors in different countries in the regions, because they focus very much on concrete projects, like economic projects, like opening the direct flights. And we have seen how important it is for us, for Romania, but also for these countries. So I think with different challenges the countries in the regions face, we have to have a very coordinated approach on one side, because I think the European Union is the only way to bring prosperity, security, and to stay together as Europeans in front of the challenges we all face at the end of the day. Because and I don't like this idea, it's us and you. We are together. It's a kind of coalition, because as Europeans, we face the same challenges, irrespective if we are in Romania, in Europe, in Republic of Moldova, in Ukraine. Of course, in Ukraine, situation is different because there is a war there, but also in different countries in the Western Balkans. But the challenges in terms of foreign interference, in terms of Russia's playing with social media, Russia's playing with different political actors to bring instability. We have to face these challenges together, to exchange experience, to see how we can improve our democratic resilience. And I think we can share from our recent experience in this respect. So I'm ready to discuss, and I really, I think also what is equally important to focus on young generation. Because the fact that we use the interethnic sensibilities of coming from the past, instead of focusing on the past and not on the future, you know, that if this nationalistic rhetoric spread in all the countries doesn't help the young generation. They expect something else from our politicians, from your politician in the region. So, because at the end of the day, they will leave the country. And what is the result? Staying in the past or looking at the future? I think this is very important when the young generation can be more vocal in a sense, that, and showing what Europe can bring in concrete terms. It's just enough to look at the economic development from 2007 when we joined and where we are now. In terms of the democratic resilience, we went through a difficult period, but we succeeded, and Europe was there. So I think together we have to be very honest to see exactly what's the future, what the young generation want. I'm sure that they are fed up with this rhetoric, nationalistic rhetoric. They need something else. They need jobs, they need prosperity, economic prosperity. They need to enjoy life, to travel. So I think we have to work together to do more bilaterally. It's the case of Romania, and we are committed to continue this dialogue we have bilaterally, because, as I said, in Brussels we are always very supporting. But as I said, it's not enough. So the bilateral approach, sharing from our experience, showing where the countries in Balkans can be if they continue the reforms, I think this is the way to work together. I will stop here, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much. I think what personally I expected from you was delivered by you. Madam BECIREVIC, you're coming. I have the following dilemma. 4 more speakers, 33 minutes. Either we share the whole time, or we manage to leave at least 5 minutes for Q&A, which would be grateful between us. Yeah, please, you have the floor. Our co-partner for the meeting, some news from, well, from Sarajevo. Looking forward to you.
Unfortunately, well, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be, you know, co-partner in organizing this panel. But I don't think I have a very good news from Sarajevo. I mean, in general, from the Western Balkans. I think it's not all quiet on the Western Balkans front. What we are witnessing is merely an illusion of peace and stability. And today I'll address just really briefly 3 main points so that we can discuss that further. So in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have an active coup that is led by Milorad Dodik, the president of the Republika Srpska entity. And that coup is something that you will not hear that much in the Western media or in media in general, is that that coup is being enabled by the leading Croatian party and its president, Dragan Čović, alongside the collective indecision of the West. So the second point is that the EU and a certain EU member states, including Croatia, are playing a very dangerous game. We hear a lot how Milorad Dodik, a secessionist, a rebel leader, is supported by Aleksandar Vučić and by Serbia, but we don't hear very often that Dodik is also supported by Zagreb, while Brussels administration is really leaning towards the appeasement policy of the appeasement, which is reminiscent of Chamberlain's logic before the World War II. So just yesterday, I listened to a panel discussing Russian aggression against Ukraine and whether there is still hope that the West actions will be inspired by Churchill's resolve. Like most citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, we do stand in solidarity with our friends in Ukraine, and we deeply admire their courage to defend themselves. But we are also wondering whether the similar fate is being prepared for us along in the future. So my focus is in Bosnia and Herzegovina because the situation is bleak. And in the end, I would like to finish on a high note that there remains a window of opportunity, but only if the EU and NATO act decisively and strategically. So last year at the panel in Temișoara, we spoke about the deepest political crisis Bosnia and Herzegovina has experienced since the end of the war in 1995. And we also discussed whether Milorad Dodik, secessionist leader, is actually prepared to go further and to further escalate this crisis. So 1 year later, the situation has worsened, just as many have predicted. He's been convicted at first instance, refusing at the state court. He refuses to appear before the court, effectively making him a rebel and fugitive for justice. So for years, for those who are not acquainted with the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Milorad Dodik has been building parallel institution in the entity of Republika Srpska, preparing it for secession, dismantling the Dayton Peace Agreement, and basically he operates as a Russian agent in Bosnia and Herzegovina. He doesn't really hide it. He is very, very proud of it, and his goal is to obstruct Euro-Atlantic integration and destroy state institutions. So he has an open support from Belgrade and from Moscow, but also from Zagreb and Budapest. Putin, Vučić, and Orban back him equally, both ideologically and institutionally. The sad thing is that the EU administration in Brussels doesn't really want to recognize that Zagreb is using this opportunity of Milorad Dodik and his secession to establish the third federal unit and to help Vučić and Dodik in dismantling of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And this is not my illusion. Dragan Čović, 2 days ago, just openly said that his goal is the third federal unit, which would be ethnically only Croatia. So, just as we've heard on other panels here about Putinism and its global threats, in Bosnia and Herzegovina we are witnessing its local manifestation by a domestic political actor who is dismantling constitutional order, defying arrest, acting as a destabilizing force in the heart of in the heart of Europe. And all of that is happening in the country where the West still holds a real power. And I mean a real power, militarily, institutionally, and where the West, like nowhere else in the Western Balkans, hardly anywhere else in the world, can basically do whatever it wants. So, what is happening is that the EU administration lacks political will and a unified voice, and it is still following the steps of Angela Merkel's stabilocracy, even though Germany, Austria, and Poland are now advocating for a stronger action, but it doesn't really seem that Brussels administration and the EU delegation in Bosnia and Herzegovina is ready for it. But there is room for action for Bosnia and Herzegovina, and that's also an opportunity for the EU and NATO, because instead of really following the policy of appeasement, and instead of tolerating Putin agent and Putin actions in Bosnia, NATO and the EU actually now do have an opportunity not only to secure Bosnia and Herzegovina Euro-Atlantic future, but to demonstrate that coordinated Western action has strength and meaning in multipolar world. So at this moment, what the West can and should do is to strengthen the Bosnia and Herzegovina Security Agency, to remove Milorad Dodik from the state-level coalition. And all of that cannot happen unless EUFOR assists domestic agencies with the arrest of Milorad Dodik. What is also necessary is to make it decisively clear to Zagreb and the Croatian party in Bosnia and Herzegovina that support for secessionism and partnership with Russian proxies are incompatible with European policies. So all we really need is the kind of genuine political will, assistance in arresting Dodik, that should have already been underway. Instead, messages that we have been hearing over the past couple of days from European delegation in Sarajevo is that there should be renewed political negotiation with Russian agent Milorad Dodik, and I think that is absolutely sad, because Bosnia presently presents a unique opportunity for NATO. In 1995, NATO intervention strengthened the alliance, and today Euro-Atlantic alliance is again being tested. We should not forget that Bosnia is one of the rare constant lines of the American foreign policy. And that is the opportunity that should be seized for strengthening the NATO with those steps I have kind of hopefully imagined. Thank you.
I thank you so much, Madam BECIREVIC. Again, you confirm the impression I already had last year. You have a capacity to blend the microcosm with the macrocosm, and to blend what I was saying in the opening, the tensions within with the tensions without. Inside, outside, inside, out. In this case, if we take the specific sample, I say microscopic in the terms of scientific analysis of the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we look at the fact that we are now 35 years since the end of the Cold War, 30 years in the Dayton agreements. And if we put a time scale to see what has happened in the meantime, we see that not everything is bleak, and not everything is... things have happened. Enlargement of the European Union, enlargement partially because the Western Balkans are still on the threshold. Some are candidates, some are not. You had enlargement, massive enlargement of NATO in the Western Balkans and so on. So, what you say is absolutely correct in terms of the gathering of tension on a very small scale in a very complicated environment. It is not the only one, because the Western Balkans, you have to connect all the dots. And in order to connect all the dots, I think I will hand the floor to our dear friend Vuk and see from Belgrade this combination of complicated realities. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Now, I will speak about foreign and security policy issues in the Balkans and how they look from Belgrade's perspective. Now, the beginning of November 2024 promised to be a very good period for Serbian incumbent leadership. Olaf Scholz's government in Germany went down, and their preferable candidate for the US presidential post entered into the White House. So everything promised to be a very, very good start for them. However, what has happened was that train station in the Serbia's second largest city, Novi Sad, a couple of months after being opened and renovated, collapsed, killing 16 people. And this triggered nationwide protests, which were primarily led by students. Now, the protests are toning down, but the political polarization and political dysfunction remain. So, as a result of this occurrence, the problem is that all the big issues that normally would preoccupy a think tank event such as this one, the usual stories about the European Union or Russian influence, I can tell you these issues are the least relevant issues in the country right now. The entire foreign and security policy in the country is paralyzed as a result of what has transpired on the domestic playing field. And so the entire foreign policy is reduced to one thing and one thing alone: to repair the political image of the incumbent Serbian leadership in international circles and to help them stay afloat domestically. And that is, for example, why we recently had the fact that that Serbian president defied the European Union by attending the Victory Day parade in Moscow, or the fact that the Russian symbolism is invoked when you try to discredit the protests by trying to portray them as a colored revolution backed by the West. At the same time, the problem is also what happens with the issue of the European Union. I think that with the combination, that we have a very, very toxic combination at this moment in time. On one hand, we have increasing cynicism regarding the European Union over the fact that since 2008, the only news that the Serbian population has received from the European Union, starting from the Eurozone crisis, has been a bad news. So, Eurozone crisis, Brexit, migration crisis, you name it. They all have conditioned the idea that, that perhaps Europe is not this shining utopian city on the hill, on the horizon that we should strive for. Number two, since 2014, we have had an aggressive anti-EU campaign spearheaded by the incumbent coalition. And number three, we also have, among parts of the local population, a very, very strong degree of cynicism over transactional deals that the EU is still engaged with the incumbent leadership. So all of this is wrecking this appeal of EU model in Serbia, respectively. And where are we heading on this front? While frequently many scaremongering analyses like to portray Serbia as little Russia, as Kremlin's obedient proxies, even though me as an academic and a researcher have been discounting this idea, showing nuances and complexities and distrust in Serbo-Russian relations, we are looking increasingly like little Turkey. A country constantly on the EU path, but never reaching its destination, but too costly actually to get off that path. And so, for the foreseeable future, we will, the key question in the country will be whether the dissatisfaction we generated, the protests, will be able to be converted into something else, like namely a new opposition force which will be able to devise a new political narrative and new political strategies. But until that comes, the situation in Serbia comes, well, not necessarily melodramatic in terms that we will be seeing wars or anything of this sort, but when it comes to political stability in the country, it is very, very difficult to provide a particularly joyful assessment as well. And on that point, I will end because I know we are short on time.
Thank you very much for your intervention. If I may, a brief comment. Earlier in the opening, I mentioned this Romanian scholar on his From Two Europes to One. One of my favorite quotations is from a Serbian anthropologist who died in America, Bogdan Stojanovic. He mentioned that the whole region, the problem of the whole region is modernization and westernization. He took it from another Romanian scholar, which formulated it in 1880. 1880. And he said that this evaluation of Romanian, he was economist, historian, philosopher, Xenopol, another name, indicating the vastness, fluidity and complementarity of the region. He was a Romanian historian called Xenopol. Stojanovic took over this formula and he said it applies to the whole region. If he was true in his analysis, the countries in the Western Balkans and the Balkans as a whole, Romania included, are on different degrees of achieving this historical project, which has not left you. It depends on what Romanian financial expert was writing a couple of days ago in the Romanian press after the Romanian elections. Cyclically or periodically, in this part of Europe, you have to confirm the irreversibility of the trends, in this case, Europe. So it's also within the power of, it's an evolution. It's an evolution. And I think Stojanovic was right. He was writing at the end of the Cold War. No? Thank you. So now we go to Podgorica, Madame VUKSANOVIC. You have the floor, Madame. It's an interesting place in Podgorica. I've been there, although it seems small, but a lot of knots are tied there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador MAGHERU. I will try to be brief and maybe come down to 3 points. The first 2 points were actually raised by Ms. ODOBESCU. So the first one is that EU does have a coordinated approach when it comes to the enlargement, and I would have to say that yes, that stands for Montenegro, but we've heard previously that it may not be the case with Bosnia and Herzegovina and Serbia. It feels like for Montenegro and for Albania, it is a coordinated, well-executed plan that is going to make us be a part of the EU by 28. We have that slogan 28 by 28, and it feels miraculous, but also at this point very much achievable. And if I'm not mistaken, I can see in the audience the ex-EU ambassador of Montenegro, Ms. Papa, who have achieved a lot for Montenegro to be in this position to approach this goal of becoming a member by 28. The reason why we are in that position also will be my third point, so I will come back to that, because Montenegro is politically fragmented. We do have weak institutions, and we do have many challenges in the ruling coalition, including right-wing political political actors that are getting stronger, but hopefully not strong enough to kind of make problems, real substantial problems on the EU path, on our EU path. The second point that was raised by Mrs. ODOBESCU was that young generations do not want to be included in this nationalist narratives and feeling stuck in the past. And I believe that some of the students in Serbia kind of tried to show the same, that they do not live in the Yugoslavia war system and conflicts, even though we are very much divided after the war into ethnic categories, but even so religious categories that are very much alive in the Balkan region, meaning we have Catholic, Muslims, and Orthodox within several ethnicities. But I do agree that younger population in Montenegro is trying to make a separation from that narrative. And the clear example of that is that when we have elections, especially local elections, mostly young people, young voters from 18 to 30 are skipping the elections, saying that none of the political parties are actually offering them anything, meaning that political parties are mostly creating nationalistic narratives and creates their politics based on national identities and problems. So hopefully we will not be in that situation, but on the other note, on a global level, the poll that has been done among US citizens and EU citizens, including France, Germany, and Italy, around 55% of people do expect, and they can expect it in a normal, romanticizing way, that the war will be happening in the next 2 decades, and perhaps it will be a nuclear war, majority of them thinks. So I'm hoping that we can stop normalizing the idea of war, of pending clashes, and maybe go back to the reactions that Gen Z and millennials have, that they do not want to be a part of any war as such. The third point, and I will finish with that, is that why Montenegro is on its fast way to the EU. It's not because we are ready to become an equal member, and I don't think that the EU prepares us for that, but they do prepare us to be an asset. So we are a logistical asset. We are a great route for military mobility. We are a reservoir of low-cost manpower for military missions, and we have a geopolitical position that can be used, for example, to host ports and so on, especially Adriatic season. So Adriatic area, together with Danube region, is a great getaway between Central Europe, Black Sea, and Mediterranean. So for the EU, it's not important that we deliver reforms as such in the best democratic way possible, but is to have stability, neutralize the Western Balkan region so that we can use it as a military asset. Of course, Montenegro will use that opportunity. We're obviously on board, and we are gonna deliver that hopefully as an EU member in the next couple of years. So, but my final point should be, unfortunately, at this time, not only in Western Balkan region, but globally, democracy isn't measured by its substance, it is measured by its utility, and I think that Montenegro is an example of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think there are a lot of things to put on the table and integrate your angles here and tie them together with the others. And also, thank you for including the geography. It's the positive approach to the revenge of geography, which you mentioned. You also hinted to what is underlining the formation of consciousness, which is a theme dear to Madame ODOBESCU, referring to social media. But now, because we have here Monsieur LAFOND from the European Council on Foreign Relations, actually he has a very solid background as a diplomatist in the Western Balkans. This is one thing, so he knows the region. The other one is that we need the vision from within Europe as to how the founding members looks at this process and this drive for the one Europe. We would very much appreciate your insight, because you also had the opportunity to add all the interventions till now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you to the organizer and to Emmanuel Dupuy for inviting me here in this conference. I used to be 6 years in the Western Balkans as a French expert, so sent by the French government in order to help the government of North Macedonia first and then to Serbia in the European trajectory, but I will speak on my own capacity today. The importance of the Western Balkans from the European Union is now obvious. I mean, you have to read all the documents for many years about, yes, the Western Balkans will be member of the family, they will be member of the European Union, and the roadmaps for all the countries are quite clear. As we have understood, the situation in the region and in each of the countries is not so fun, is not so great. I mean, Bosnia-Herzegovina, we have seen, is dismantling as a country, and we don't see how will be the solution. Serbia, President Vučić is playing around all the time, going to Moscow for the 9th of May, and then saying, yes, the European accession is still a priority. We've got North Macedonia now with the government of Mikovsky, who doesn't want to change the constitution after the agreement that they've got with the Bulgarian government. So the situation on the ground is not so great. We have seen that Montenegro is doing quite well, even if there are some small issues. And Albania is on the track because they have started the negotiations, they have opened the clusters. So they suppose, and this is the ambition of Edi Rama, is to be the member of the European Union in 2030. So this is the national situations, which are a bit contrasted, I would say. On the other side, on the European Union side and on the French side, we have a French strategy for the Western Balkans decided in 2019 by the President Macron, and is completely convinced about the membership of the Western Balkans in the European Union. I mean, he is traveling, he's trying to do his best with Vučić, because we know that Serbia is a central country for the Western Balkans. I mean, if you see the influence of, as it was mentioned, of Vučić in Bosnia-Herzegovina, in Montenegro, in Kosovo, we did not mention the Kosovo, and the fact that Kurti is not doing what he was supposed to do also with the association of the municipalities on the north, we have a situation where we try to make the Western Balkans member of the family as soon as possible. At the same time, we did not mention that, we know that we will need to change also the European Union decision-making rules because we have some issues. I mean, we have some issues from time to time with one country which is blocking because we have unanimity vote conditions. So when Orban doesn't want to push forward the sanctions against Russia, we need to deal, we need to give him something. I mean, this is not obvious. And we know that, as it was mentioned, there are some connections between Hungary, between Serbia, between Dodik and so on. So the point of the French, and I think all the European Union members now, is a double track. We have to continue to make sure that the Western Balkans are doing the reforms, are becoming more democratic, are getting involved in the European Union thinking, because there is the thinking, and we forget that. The thinking is becoming member of the European Union means that you accept that you will share part or element of your national sovereignty with others. And this is one of the main issues in the Western Balkans, because they are recovering now a very fragile national sovereignty. So they are saying, and you can see that in all the statements, yes, we are European, but this is our national interest first. No, sorry. The European Union is a European interest. So that means that you have to accept that from time to time, some others will decide also for you. I mean, the Germans, when they have accepted to build the euro, they accepted to give up of the Dutch mark, which was fundamental for them. But they have accepted that there will be ECB, there will be a monetary policy, coordinated even with the Italians and the French and the others. So they have accepted. And most of the countries accept at a certain point to share pieces. I'm not saying all. This is not protectorate, this is not, but on a certain number of specific issues, you have to accept that the 27 and the 30 and the 34 are taking a certain number of decisions that sometimes this is not the best solution for you, but you have to accept because this is the best solution for together, the European Union. So this is that we have also to make sure to understand in the Western Balkans and still in the European Union. I mean, this is not something which is easy even for France. Sometimes on the foreign policy, you will understand that Paris doesn't want to do something on the international level because this is not the common practice. So that's three elements just for everybody to think about what is the European integration process and the membership. Now we have to do very quickly with the Western Balkans because the IPA funds are what we are giving to the Western Balkans countries. But this is 7-8 times less than the structural funds or the cohesion funds that the member states are getting around. So that means that the economic divergence and the economic and social divergence are increasing. If you're giving 100 to Bulgaria or to Romania, the Western Balkans will get 10 million, 15 million. So the divergence is increasing, so we need to speed up the process. Two, there is a question that I have not solved. This is Europeanization of the bilateral disputes are a positive answer or not? And for the moment, this is not. So that means that we are trying to get rid of this Serbia, Kosovo issues, and this is not working. I mean, for 5 years, the Lacak, the special representative, tried and it did not work. We have a new special representative, Pedersen. We'll see how it will work. But the fact to Europeanize a bilateral dispute is not a guarantee of success. But at the same time, when you have a member which has a dispute with a non-member, this is not moving forward. Let's see, but for many years, Bulgaria with North Macedonia, and you mentioned Croatia. Well, there will be Slovenia. I mean, all the Greece with Albania. There are bilateral issues which will arise, but we have to find the right way to get rid of that. The third point is about the techniques. We changed the techniques of the enlargement negotiations. This is clusters, I mean chapters, 35 chapters. Everyone has to take into account in his own legislation the acquis communautaire. So this is a long process. I'm not sure that the new methodology that the French president have asked in 20 in order to speed up, to politicize a little bit the process, to avoid the technocratic negotiation and so on, this is not working. So we have to find a new solution. So maybe we have to think a little bit of what we did with Greece when there was the euro crisis and we put a troika in place. Everybody was criticizing the troika and in particular the Greeks saying, we are losing our sovereignty and so on. Look at the economic situation of Greece now. The unemployment is down. The foreign investment are okay. The economic growth is great. So that means that we did not think enough about the Troika system. Let's call it differently. Let's organize it. But the point is to monitor better the Western Balkans, and to be sure, so that means to have 3-4 people from the Commission, from the Court of Justice and so on, going to the country, checking what has been done, the legislation, what is done, and how this is implemented correctly on the ground. Maybe we will have a speed process for the integration of the Western Balkans, that we need them inside, because the European Union is not credible if we are not capable to fix this region.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the in-depth presentation, but also preliminary conclusions for what most of the speakers did not speak about, that the prevailing winds seem to be from within, and this was discussed about, and not the threats from outside, with the mentions you made about Bosnia-Herzegovina. But particularly, it is the inside process where it takes two to tango within the European family. And I think this is a very important message. I don't want you to be late for lunch, but I think I can hand over for a concluding remark to Madame ODOBESCU to bring her input to your last comments.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to react a little bit of the fact that, yes, EU is not perfect. And I mean, using this narrative that, well, you have a lot of problems, migration, you had Brexit, and so on and so forth. But again, look at what EU brings for citizens. It's not only financial resources, it's true, sometimes we also feel the frustration of the population from this country, because sometimes they feel, okay, this process is not advancing in the way we want, as you know. But at the end of the day, if you look at the results, this integration comes also with reforms, with changes of institutions, because, of course, we can look at other countries, bringing, I don't know, Chinese or Russia's money, but you have seen the results. And we prefer, maybe as citizens, to have tough institutions, to have anti-corruption institutions, to have democratic institutions, so to have standards for our citizens. So, and this is a collective effort. As Ambassador MAGHERU said, we need two for tangos. So it's not easy, exactly, but at the end of the day, it brings a security and prosperity for citizens. I just, maybe it's not very diplomatic from my side, but just look at the figures. When the moment we started our journey as EU member, where we are now, and compare. And we'll see the results. And we see that in difficult times we are really together. It's not perfect, or EU is not perfect, it's perfectible, but it's the best we have on the European continent. So I think this should be a message also for citizens. I think it's also a political responsibility, and sometimes we have to take decisions, again, looking at the past or at the future for our young generation. I think this is simple as that. But of course, we need political decision and fighting for this, because, as I said, it brings stability, prosperity, and a different way of, how to say, a different way in terms of bringing benefits for citizens. Thank you.
Well, I think I am compelled to wish you bon appétit. So bringing a close to this meeting, and hope to see you in the fall in Timișoara, because we will have our Balkan Forum edition this year. I think it is in October. Thank you very much, Madam Minister. I know your timetable is so crowded, but you really made a very useful contribution, I would say. And happy to be again on the European front together. Thank you for the audience. I am sorry I cannot offer you the possibility of a lengthy Q&A, but I think you have a lot of food for reflection. Thank you.